Good afternoon. Today we are going to be learning perek vav, the 6th chapter, and second part of and last part of the 6th chapter. Just to recap what we learned yesterday. So zirizut, which is a diligence, is to grab a mitzvah that comes our way and not give in to the Yetzer Hara. So Shlomo HaMelech advises us to be like an armed soldier who is ready to fight the war. That's how we can make sure that we are on top of and being diligent. In part 2 of the 6th chapter, Shlomo gives us more advice and says, Gam mitrape bimlachto hu liba'al mashrit. One who grows lax, who grows lazy in his work, in Avodat Hashem, is also a brother to the master of destruction. Ki af al pi she'enenu hamashrit ha'oseh et hara'a beyadav. For even though the lazy person is not the destroyer who does the ra, the evil, actively, lo tachshov shehu rachok mimenu. Don't think that he's far from being like him, like the destroyer. Ela achiv uben gilohu, but he is his brother and his friend. Ben gilo doesn't mean that he's of the same age. What it means that he's his friend. In here, Shlomo is teaching us that if one has the opportunity to build and fails to do so, is similar to someone who destroys. There's an occasion to build something, and you just let it pass. It's just as bad as someone who destroys a structure. The result is that there is no structure where there should be one. Similarly, one who fails to perform a mitzvah or study Torah misses the opportunity to develop his spiritual growth. So when we don't do a mitzvah, it's not we are not doing a mitzvah. Because each mitzvah actually helps us to grow, to go up the ladder. But when we let a mitzvah go by, we actually miss out on the mitzvah, and we miss out on that opportunity of building, of going up and growing. Obviously, it is worse to be actively destructive. And that's where laziness is called destructive. Ramchal brings a third lesson from Shlomo HaMelech, to explain the harm caused by the lazy person. Al sede ish atzel avarti, and here it brings an example that we actually see. There's lots of things we see in life, but we don't always take a lesson from it. So here Shlomo HaMelech said, here's an example, something I saw. Al sede ish atzel avarti, ve'al kerem adam haser lev. I passed by the field of a lazy man, and by the vineyard of a man lacking an understanding heart. It means that the vineyard and the field, both of them were neglected by their owners. Vehine ala kulo kimshunim kasu panav charulim. The field was overgrown with thorns, nettles that covered its surface. The stone fence was broken. In other words, the field was neglected. The field was neglected, the vineyard was neglected, there were thorns growing, and even the fence was broken. To get to that extent, that's obviously over time, and it really shows terrible neglect on the part of the negligence on the part of the owner. Va'ahazeh anochi ashit ashit libi, ra'iti lakarti musar. When I saw this destruction, Shlomo HaMelech said, which obviously could have been prevented by the owner, I set my heart to understand. And I understood and I accepted the discipline, the lesson. Shlomo HaMelech said, when I saw this field and this vineyard that could have produced so much crops, that could have been so productive, I realized about the destruction that it is to be lazy. Oh, a little more sleep, just a little dozing off. Every time it's a little dozing off, every time it's a little sleep, and it only makes it worse. The farmer's laziness causes the field to deteriorate and become overrun. Because of the laziness, the farmer did not grow crops either. So he was so lazy that it wasn't taken care of, it was neglected. The thorns just grew bigger and more and stronger. The fence was broken more than one place, and nothing productive was done with his field. And all this came from what? From the laziness of the owner. The same is true of laziness in Avodat Hashem. The result is not only the lack of spiritual growth, but actual spiritual decay. So, like I said before, when we miss a mitzvah or we miss learning Torah, we are not, every mitzvah, every time we learn, we go up the ladder, but when we don't, we go down. We don't stay stagnant, as we will see later on. For that, the Gaon of Vilna said that a person is not stagnant, but always in flux. And this is what the Gaon said. The Gaon of Vilna was a very, very great rabbi who was, as we hear, Gaon, which means a genius. And he said, no one can be staying on the same level, static. You can't. It's just like water that cannot be stagnant. Water has to move, or else it becomes bad. The same is with people. We are in flux. It means either we go up or we go down. But it's every day, every moment of the day, it's either up or down, depending on what we do with our time. And the Gaon says, if he's not climbing in the Avodat Hashem, the ladder of Avodat Hashem, then for sure he's falling. So the Gaon says, there's no two ways about it. Either we climb and we go higher, or simply we just fail and we go lower. This example that Shlomo HaMelech gave us about the field was a visual example that he saw, and he learned a lesson from it personally. But that's also for us. It's also a lesson for us. There's lots of things that we see, how people are successful. We see them constantly being busy, doing things, not letting a moment pass. Or people who are great Talmidei Chachamim. Or yesterday I was listening to a class and they were talking about Rabbi Chaim Levi, who apparently was a man who was so always learning Torah. When he'd be walking from his house to shul, he would always be studying constantly. So when people would meet him, the kids were playing on the street, they would see him, so they would go over and ask him for a bracha. Even for that, he didn't stop. He would just keep on walking and give them the bracha, not stopping for a moment with his learning. Then once he would be done, the child would go away, or however many children there were, and he would keep walking. It just, every moment was used up for moving forward. However, Chachamim give us a deeper meaning. The field is a symbol of a lazy person's Torah knowledge. The thorns of the field represent this person. This person is searching for an answer in Torah. So we're talking here about someone who had learned Torah, but he can't find his answer because he did not invest time and effort in his study of Torah. So therefore, his study is not strong. His bases are not strong. So when he wants to look up for something, doesn't understand it, and he might have a question, but that question he might end up actually misunderstanding and actually break the fence, meaning he might allow something that is not allowed to be done. He would allow such a thing to be done, which is obviously forbidden. Why we call it fence? Because the laws of Chachamim that Chachamim have set up, we call them fence, since they help us to be able to do mitzvot and to help us. And so when a person doesn't, the fence here refers to the fence of the Chachamim. The ruin that a lazy person brings on himself does not happen all at once, obviously. Just like a field doesn't grow thorns all at once. The ruin that a person does to himself is over time. Slowly and slowly, things get worse and worse and worse, until one day he wakes up and he says to himself, whoa, I have so low, I've gone so low. What am I to do? Right? But at that point, he's already in total ruin, total destruction. So for us to understand this concept, I would like to share with you a story that I heard over Pesach by one of my nephews. There was a rabbi called Rabbi Albo, who would travel all over Israel. He would book a place, and he would also book a speaker. Usually he would pick, he was very picky with his speakers. He wanted to have speakers who were very dynamic and very strong and powerful. And then he would do this. He would get a place, he would book a place in an area where there was hardly any religious Jews. And then he would make flyers and have his helpers and volunteers give out those flyers and put out signs. And usually an hour or two before the speech, before the speaker was due to speak, there was already a crowd coming together outside, waiting to come into the place, into the building. So one time, as usual, he really picked a very, very good speaker, and he had the place, he had everything ready, and he was there already 3 hours before. He was there with his workers and volunteers, just taking care of the final details. And as he's looking at his watch, it's less than 2 hours until the speaker starts his speech, and he realizes that actually, he looks outside, nobody's around. He waits a little longer, nothing, not a single person was going on. Then time was already, so I was already like an hour and a half before. Something is not right. So right away he takes a decision. He calls his volunteers and his workers, and he says to them, you're going to split yourself in groups of 2. You're going to go take with you flyers and go knock on doors. What? Do you know what you're asking? Listen, people are going to throw tomatoes and eggs at us. Don't worry, just go and do it. It can't be, this is a very great speaker. We cannot embarrass a speaker this way. We have to have people here tonight. So please go. I will also go around. So he took someone with him and he started walking, knocking on doors. One point he came to the door, he knocked on the door, and then he stepped away from the doorway because he didn't know what kind of reception he was going to get. And someone opens the door, and there's a big guy who's really huge and full of tattoos. And he looks at them, and the look on his face is one of like anger, confusion, and he's looking at them, and he says, "Who sent you?" Just like that. Not what you want, what are you doing here? Who sent you? For a moment, they both lost their, didn't know how to react to something like this. Then Rabbi Elbo said, "Elohim." He looked at them, and then he grabbed them and he said, "You must come inside." They were really scared. He brings them inside, and he takes them to his bathroom. And he shows them at the ceiling, and the ceiling of the bathroom, on the ceiling, there was a rope hanging. And they understood what that meant. Then he took them out of the bathroom, and he took them in the living room, and he said to them, "I used to be in yeshiva. And then I got to the wrong crowd." Right? This is what we learned yesterday. Tell me who your friends are, I tell you who you are. I fell into the wrong crowd, and I let go of everything I learned. But not only that I let go of everything I learned, I started to do terrible things, and I even got other people to do terrible things. And now I am at rock bottom. That's it. I cannot be lower than this. I already had put the rope around my neck. And the last moment I said, "Elohim, if you love me, show me a sign." And then you knocked on the door. If you had not knocked on the door, I would have been gone. Obviously, the rest of the story is self-explanatory. Yes, they took care of him. And then, yes, he did do teshuvah. And yes, that night ended up being a huge success. Just with this one person, it was worth it all. But it really ended up being a huge success. So we see here that how a person can very easily hit rock bottom and find himself one day, what did that do with my life? So, so a scholar could be that someone who did learn Torah in the past is also someone who is lazy with his learning. He will learn something easy, right? This is how his laziness is going to get a hold of him. So instead of learning something that is on his level, he's going to go and take something that is easy for him, just to read and relax with his learning. And he'll keep doing it to the point where he's going to do the wrong things in halakha, and will bring distraction on himself. The distraction that a scholar brings on himself is worse than someone who never learned and brought distraction on himself because of his laziness. Someone who never gave himself the chance to learn Torah. Why? Because someone who never learned Torah, and when he happens to have some kind of question in halakha, somehow something bothered him. So what's he to do? I know I never learned, so I have to go and ask someone who did, right? So he'll go and learn, go to a rabbi. But a scholar who is lazy, he will rely on himself. Or no, I know, I've learned, so I am capable of learning. However, the lack of learning actually it brings a lack of knowledge due to his laziness, and will act according to his misunderstanding because he thinks he knows the law. So what's going to do? He's going to do the wrong things. The lazy individual is like an active, destructive person. So Shlomo HaMelech said earlier on, just a little more sleep, just a little more dozing, is like a poison that continuously spreads little by little throughout the body. The effect is only noticed by the death of the victim. Once we have a dead body, and then we start checking, and then realize, oh, that was poison. That's how he died, by poison. But that poison had been given to this person in very small amount. So laziness can even distort a person's thought process. If you were to ask a lazy person to explain his laziness, he will always find excuses and even bring examples from the Gemara or from the Torah. Yeah, I need to rest. No, I need to eat now. He'll find all kind of excuses just to make it easy for himself to stay in the comfort of his laziness. He does not see that all of this comes from laziness. As Shlomo HaMelech said, "Chacham atzel be'enav mishiv'a meshivet ta'am." The lazy one is wiser in his eyes than 7 who answer sensibly. In his eyes, he's smarter, wiser than 7 other chachamim, because his laziness does not allow him to consider that there might be some validity to the words of those who rebuke him, to the words of those who are telling him that his way is not good, laziness is not good. He doesn't want to. He's not interested in listening. He considers them to be fools and misguided. And he alone is a chacham, a wise man. How can we avoid this cycle? Now the Ramchal says, okay, now that we know the damage that laziness can bring, how can we avoid this? It's hard work. The Ramchal says, one must make himself strong in zerezut, in diligence, to perform mitzvot by casting off, by fighting laziness that stops him from performing the mitzvot. The only way we can stop this is by fighting it, and that is hard work, because you have to keep yourself in check constantly, and you constantly have to remember, oh, there's this excuse and that excuse, and recognize that these are excuses and nothing else. In Tehillim, David HaMelech said, Giborei koach oseh devaro, lishmoa bekol devaro. This is referring to Malachim, who want so much to fulfill Hashem's will. It's almost as if they do it before they even hear what must be done. And in the Yechezkel Hanavi, it says, Achayot ratzo vashov kamar'e habazak, that the Malachim run here and there with great strength and diligence. But Ramchal says, this is Malachim, it's not us, it's not a human being, it's not a person. It is impossible for a human being to reach the spiritual level of a Malach. But this is for us to try and extend ourselves, to reach up and strive to come close, just as a Malach is a messenger. We too are messengers that Hashem sent us to this world to serve Him. We are told to serve Hashem with zerezut, so we can carry out our mission entirely, just as angels do. Yet, we are not angels, but we have to know that there is a ceiling. We have to know that there is a level that we can reach. Just like we say, Chachamim teach us, Matai yagiu ma'asai le'maasei avotai. The Chachamim teach us, when am I going to reach the level of our forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? When? Who can reach them? We're down below, they're all the way up there. But this is something that we need to aspire to. Something that we say, okay, maybe I cannot reach 100%. Maybe I can reach 20, maybe 40, maybe 50, maybe 70%. But if we don't set to ourselves a ceiling, then we're always going to stay below at maybe 10% or 5% or not even. Our goal in life should be to always serve Hashem with zerizut, so that our time on this earth, we can go up. When time is up for each one of us, after 120 years, when we go up to Shamayim, we can declare to Hashem, I have completed my mission. Just as David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Chashti v'letmahmati lishmor mitzvotecha. I hurried and I did not delay. Litmameya means I did not delay to keep your commandments. He was happy that he had been able to attain zerizut. May Hashem help us too to attain zerizut, so we too can complete our mission. In the zechut of this learning, may Hashem bless us all with beriut HaNefesh u'Beriut HaGuf, the good health, nachat, parnasa, shalom, and shidduchim to whoever needs one.